Hello everybody, Mobius Y here with another video for Stellaris Console Edition. Today's video is going to be discussing one of the core mechanics of the game, and this video's topic will be about jobs, which is one of the new mechanics introduced in version 2.2. Now before continuing with the video, if you'd like to see more Stellaris Console Edition content, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to be notified when I upload a new video. Normally I upload at least once per week as per my stream schedule, but sometimes I'll upload more often. Now, these newer mechanics videos will be somewhat unscripted, unlike previous videos, but I still intend to cover the topic in great detail, so hopefully by the end of this video you will have learned something. I'd also like to note that this particular video will only briefly touch on Gestalt consciousness empires, which is hive minds and machine empires, as the main focus is for regular organic empires as shown in the on-screen visual examples. So let's get started talking about jobs, and we're going to start with production and upkeep. So jobs on a colony, whether it's a planet, a habitat, or a ringworld section, they are provided by the various districts and buildings that you construct on that planet. And the types of jobs available determines the resources produced on the planet. So in order to look at the jobs that are on a particular colony, what you want to do is you go to the colony screen and hit the right bumper to go to the population tab. In this tab, you can see a breakdown of the jobs in each of the strata and what the jobs are. Now the strata are divided into three sections. You have your workers, which are basically lower class citizens, and they work the very basic jobs such as miners to produce minerals, farmers to produce food, technicians to produce energy credits. There's also clerks, and there's a few other examples as well, like soldiers. But they're essentially your lower class citizens. The second strata is specialists. This is where your jobs like enforcers, your metallurgists, which create alloys, and your researchers, which produce more science. They'll be in the specialists category. There's a lot more jobs than those examples that I named, but just keep that in mind. They're kind of like your middle class. And then you have your rulers, which are things like administrators, or with various civics. Sometimes you have special ruler jobs like nobles or science directors if you have the various civics in question that provide those jobs. You have administrators and merchants most of the time, and that's essentially how that goes. So each particular type of job requires some kind of upkeep, and being in different strata requires various types of upkeep as well as differing amounts. For example, workers will require less food and less housing and less consumer goods than, say, for example, rulers will, as rulers are given higher living standards depending on what your living standards are set to. Most of the time they will be higher, though. Same thing with specialists. They're kind of, they require more than workers but less than rulers, as they are your middle class citizens. So while you're in this screen, you can actually look on the right hand side. When you move the cursor over a particular strata, on the right hand side you will see the various levels of production and upkeep, as well as some additional modifiers to show you some additional values. So this shows you the resources that are being produced, the resources that are being consumed from all the jobs in this strata, as well as additional modifiers, which shows various other things. For example, it's showing plus 76 naval capacity. That is simply showing that the soldier jobs on this colony are producing an additional 76 naval capacity for the Empire as well. So the main ones are your production and upkeep, particularly production. So out of all my workers, my farmers are producing almost 200 food, my miners are producing 265 minerals per month, and the technicians on this colony are producing over 87 energy credits per month. Now their upkeep is something to pay attention to, especially with certain resources like food and consumer goods. If you find you're running out of food and consumer goods, you do want to see where most of it is going to. You can also move up to the other strata. For example, the specialist strata, they're producing some unity through the enforcer jobs. They're producing some volatile motes through the chemist jobs, and their upkeep is somewhat different. Because of the different jobs being worked in specialists, they require different minerals for their upkeep. For example, There are consumer goods being used because of the healthcare jobs. They're consuming 5 consumer goods, and the chemist jobs are using up 10 minerals per month. So that is something to be aware of when you are looking through the differing strata on your colonies. Let's look at a different colony. What would be another good example? Well, we could look at this one, I suppose. So this is another good colony to take a look at. So the main difference between regular organic empires and Gestalt consciousness empires is that a Gestalt consciousness empire only has 2 strata. They have menial drones, which are kind of like your workers, and then they have complex drones, which are usually a combination of rulers and specialists put into a single strata. So why that's important is because in a regular organic empire, if there is a job available in a higher tier strata, for example, if I had some workers that were working jobs, but there were some specialist jobs that were made available, or even some rulers' jobs that were made available for whatever reason, either I constructed a new building or certain pops were resettled, then the various workers would be promoted to the specialist or ruler's strata to fill in the gaps for those jobs. However, if I had some specialists who were either unemployed or I demolished their building, for example, and there were now workers' jobs that were made available, for example, miners, the specialists would not be instantly demoted to workers. For example, these researchers would not be too terribly happy with being demoted from people of science to going and working in the mines where they can suffer from various things like lung cancer and all that good stuff from extracting those minerals. They will eventually get demoted to a lower strata, but it takes a long time. It takes several years, as a matter of fact. So let's just do an example. If we take a look here at these unemployed specialists, at the very beginning, it says their stratum is specialist, and they're being demoted to a worker in about 900 days. So it takes several years for them to go down in strata, but going up in strata is instant. Now, the main reason why I'm pointing this out is because it's different for Gestalt consciousness empires. Your pops in the 2 strata in a Gestalt consciousness, they are interchangeable. They will instantly get promoted to a complex drone or instantly get demoted to a menial drone if there are jobs available and if it is required on that particular colony. So keep that in mind. It's a lot easier to manage your pops and their particular jobs throughout their strata for Gestalt consciousness empires. Now, why is it important for this to be made aware of? Well, it's important because the main thing with providing jobs is you do want to combat unemployment, as unemployed pops suffer happiness penalties and they tend to not really produce any resources. And if you have a lot of unemployment on a particular colony, then you can start experiencing various crime events which increase the amount of crime on that particular planet. And the easiest way to check if a particular colony has unemployment is on the outliner on the right-hand side. If there's that little red briefcase-looking icon on a particular colony name, that indicates that there is some unemployment on that planet. For example, here on the links in description colony, there is some unemployed pops here. Same with leave a comment. There are some unemployed pops on that planet. Now, the other 2 symbols that you see in particular, the 2 orange ones on for the views and high YouTube, those indicate something else. Those indicate low housing and overcrowding. And the join the Discord one, this orange little house-looking icon indicates that we can construct a new building. That one is also pretty important because when you can construct a new building, that just means that you can add more jobs to that particular colony, especially if they're necessary. The one that indicating low housing and overcrowding, that's for a planet management video. We'll go over that in a future video. So one other thing to be very, very aware of is that pops cannot be manually designated to specific jobs like in the previous version of the game, where you could pick up a pop that's working, for example, a mining network, and then plop them down onto a science lab because you figure, hey, my empire's producing enough minerals, I want more science, go work in that science lab. You cannot manually assign the pops to do that anymore, but you can have a significant influence on which jobs are being filled and which resources resources are being produced. So a really good example of that would be, let's find one. Here's one. Watch me on Twitch. There are, you can see in the workers stratum there are 18 miners, there are 3 moat harvesters, and there's 16 farmers. So those numbers are white, indicating that all of those available jobs are filled. However, you'll see that the clerks, it's showing 12 out of 24. That means that there are 12 pops working clerk jobs, and there are 24 total clerk jobs available. So there's lots of clerk jobs available for pops to be reshuffled into. Let's say that I wanted more pops to fill in those clerks positions. What you can do is you move your cursor over a strata in question and press the A button, and now you moved into this additional little area here where you can move your cursor over a specific job. And what you can do is you can either press A to add a little yellow banner indicating that you have favorited that job, which increases its priority, or you can, as I call them, restrict jobs or decrease or deprioritize certain jobs. And to do that, you move your cursor over the job type in question and press left on the right stick, and you'll deprioritize a particular job. You can reprioritize that job again by pressing right on the right stick, and that will open that job slot back up. So by deprioritizing certain jobs, you essentially lock off various job slots. That's why I call them restricting them. So we just restricted the number of miners jobs by 4, and those 4 miners instantly moved over and filled in 4 clerks jobs. So this planet will be producing less minerals per month, but will be producing more trade value and amenities. Now we can do the same with the farmers. We can deprioritize a few farmers by pressing left on the right stick. We deprioritized 4 farmers jobs, and those 4 farmers instantly went over to the open and available clerks jobs. So that's how you can shuffle around your pops a little bit. If you want them to fill in more open jobs that you do want to kind of prioritize a little bit more, you can deprioritize certain jobs that you are not terribly concerned with. For example, if your empire has an overabundance of food right now, you could deprioritize all of the farmers jobs until those clerks jobs all get filled up, and you can leave your miners alone, for example. So we've just deprioritized all but 4 farmers jobs, for example, and you can keep going until the one particular job in question is filled up, if you so choose. By favoriting a job, what that tends to do is when you have pops being grown or robot pops being assembled on a planet, they tend to fill in the favorited job slots over other particular job slots. You'll see that when you favorite certain jobs, sometimes the pops will get shuffled around. They'll leave their current jobs. For example, if I favorited miners and there was a lot of miner slots open, but we had all 16 farmers open, if I favorited the miners, probably either by the turn of the month or even the very next in-game day, you would see a bunch of the farmers pops get shuffled over and fill in as many available miners jobs as possible. That tends to be how it works sometimes. Most of the time you just want to favorite a job and then leave your newly grown and assembled pops to fill in the available slots. Now, if you have deprioritized or restricted certain jobs, you can instantly restore them if you so wanted to by moving your cursor up to this Restore Jobs option. And it's showing in the yellow 12 in brackets there. I've currently restricted 12 jobs, and that's how many has been deprioritized. I've deprioritized 10 farming jobs and 2 mining jobs. So if I hit this, it instantly reprioritizes those jobs, and they will get filled in because by default, they have higher priority than the clerks jobs. Clerks tend to have an extremely low priority by default. Just be aware of that. So like I said, you can't manually shuffle your pops around and work a specific job. The only thing you can really do is deprioritize jobs that aren't really a necessity right now, and then if there's available job slots in a particular job or field that you want them to fill in, they will automatically go and do that. If there were no available jobs and you kept deprioritizing, those pops would simply become unemployed. And as I said, they're not doing too much for you when they are unemployed. So do be aware of that. One more thing to note on before we move on to unemployment is that certain types of jobs have different kinds of upkeep. So for example, or I should say consumption is another good word for it. So for example, you'll see that by moving my cursor over the different jobs here in the workers class, you'll see just above all the little pop icons, it's showing what that particular type of job is producing on this colony right now. So for example, our 3 moat harvesters are producing a total of 13 possibly more volatile moats each month. Our farmers on this colony are producing 451 food per month. Our miners are producing 355 minerals per month, excuse me. And our clerks are producing 24 amenities and 24 trade value on this planet. Now, if we go to the specialists, you'll start to see something a little more different, in particular with the metallurgists. You'll see that in the green number, they are producing 203 alloys per month, but on the left-hand side of the little kind of double arrow that you see there, they're actually consuming 192 minerals per month. And you'll see this for various other jobs as well. For example, artisans are producing 101 consumer goods, but they're consuming 48 minerals. Our medical workers are consuming 5 consumer goods, but they're producing increased pop growth speed by 25% total, and also producing 25 amenities. Certain jobs have an additional rate of consumption depending on what they're doing, because they are essentially converting the resources that they are consuming into what they are producing. So in this case, metallurgists produce alloys, and by doing that, they consume the minerals. So they're essentially converting minerals that you're producing every month into monthly alloys. So do be aware of that. There are other jobs that do something very, very similar to that. For example, on this tech world, your researchers are consuming additional consumer goods to produce more science for your empire. And then you also have culture workers, which produce some society research, but also quite a bit of unity. They're also consuming consumer goods, additional consumer goods. So if you want to increase, for example, the science output in your empire, you do need to be aware that those researcher jobs use up consumer goods, so you don't want to have too many new researchers come into play if you are running low on consumer goods each month. Same thing with culture workers. Increasing unity would be nice, but if you're very low on monthly consumer goods, you don't want to go too crazy with that. So that's essentially how each of the jobs impacts your empire overall. It's not just they're flat out producing resources for you. Some of them actually consume resources in order to create the resources that they normally produce for you. So do be aware of that. Now, the main concern when it comes to providing jobs for your pops is unemployment and combating unemployment. Unemployed pops suffer a happiness penalty under normal circumstances. So you can see these unemployed pops here, they have a happiness value of 30%, whereas some of these farmers have... sorry, that's a bad example. Some of these clerks have much higher happiness. If we scroll down in the box on the right, not counting the slaves, the pops that are not enslaved will have a happiness rating. For example, there's one there at 72% happiness. So that's because they're employed. When unemployed pops have low happiness, that does tend to usually affect the stability on the planet as well. But the most important thing is that they're largely just using up resources. And the other major concern is that when a certain colony is experiencing a lot of unemployment, you will start to experience events relating to crime, and crime is not good on the planet. So when you're here at the main surface tab, you can look at that planet status area in the top there, and it has 2 rows. The top row is stability, which shows 73%. It shows crime, which is at 0%. It shows we have 5 units of housing available, and there are 16 amenities available on this planet. In terms of jobs, the more important row is that bottom one. So right now it's showing that we have 158 pops on this planet. There are 0 available jobs, and there's currently 2 unemployed pops, and it's actually showing the bronze triangle indicating that it is 2 unemployed workers. Let's say we restricted some of these jobs, the metallurgists, and now those metallurgists are unemployed. Let's restrict a few administrators as well. Now those administrators are unemployed. So we have some unemployed rulers, some unemployed specialists, and some unemployed workers. And it's showing us here again, in that planet status screen, in that unemployed section, it's showing exactly that. The gold triangle for rulers, it's showing we have 4 unemployed rulers. We have 7 unemployed specialists with the silver triangle and 2 unemployed workers. So these unemployed pops, they're not terribly happy right now, and they're not really producing anything. They're largely just using up food and consumer goods to keep themselves alive. This is generally not good because you want them producing stuff for your empire. You want them being productive citizens. Now, to combat this, the big thing that you can do on older colonies that have pretty much all of their jobs filled in, and there's no more available jobs, a very easy way to combat unemployment on a colony in question is to simply resettle pops. And you do that by selecting the resettle option, and then it opens up this screen where on the left is the colony you were looking at, and then on the right is a colony that you want to move the pops to. So let's go to a different colony where there's some unemployed workers. So example, on links and description, we have 2 unemployed workers right now. So let's go to the resettle screen again. Now, to select which planet you're moving pops from, you hit the left trigger and it'll give you a list of planets, and you'll see that there's a few that have some red number 2s. That's indicating that there are 2 unemployed pops on this particular planet. The green 100% shows habitability. The very next number shows if there's available jobs or if there's unemployment. If it's green, there's available jobs. For example, on Watch Me on Twitch, there's 12 available jobs, and on Join the Discord, there's 4 available jobs. And then the last number after that is available housing. So links in description has 9 available housing, For the Views has 0, and Join the Discord has 15. So since we're moving pops from a planet with unemployment to a planet that has jobs, we're going to move them from the links in description planet, which we were just looking at. So we'll select that and either hit A or hit the right trigger again, and then, left trigger, and then to select the planet we want to move them to, we hit right trigger, and the list on the right opens up. So I'm selecting the Watch Me on Twitch colony because it has 12 available jobs and 10 available housing, so there's enough jobs and housing to move some pops to it. So I select it and press the A button, and now it shows the pops on the Watch Me on Twitch planet. So I could move my cursor over to the right and resettle some pops from Watch Me on Twitch to links in description, but in this case I want to move them from links in description to Watch Me on Twitch. So I move my cursor through the list of pops, I select the unemployed ones and press A to resettle one of them, and then I press A again, and you'll see that both of those pops are gone. And now we can back out of this screen and we go down to Watch Me on Twitch, and the number of jobs has dropped from the number of available jobs, has dropped from 12 to 10 because we've resettled 2 pops and they've filled in 2 of the 12 available clerks jobs. There was originally only 12 clerks, now there's 14. So that's one way to combat unemployment, and this is a really good way to help quickly get your new colonies built up and on track, because the more pops you have on a planet, the more building slots you will unlock, and if you resettle a lot of unemployed pops very shortly after a new world is colonized, you might see some unemployment on it, but you'll be able to construct some new buildings very, very early, as well as add some districts to make various jobs made available on that new colony. So remember that pops will not instantly fill in jobs in a lower strata, and they require a long time to be demoted. So despite having 10 clerk jobs available on Watch Me on Twitch, if I, for example, had a bunch of unemployed specialists, where is a good example? Let's go to the tech world here. So I'm going to restrict the researcher's job, and now we're going to have 10 unemployed specialists on this planet. So you can see we have 10 unemployed specialists, unlike the video. I can try resettling them to the Watch Me on Twitch planet because there's 10 available jobs there. But as I said, they will not instantly demote to a lower strata and fill in those jobs. Where are the unemployed specialists? There they are. Okay, so we have a couple different species of specialists that are unemployed, so we need to move all of them. So 8 of the tuber species, and we just resettled them, and then we have 2 specialist bodies to move over as well. So despite us resettling those pops to a planet that has available jobs, as I've mentioned, they've not instantly filled up those jobs. They need to be demoted to the worker strata first, and that takes a long time. So double check what jobs are available on the planet you are going to be moving pops to before you move pops into those positions. Because if you're moving rulers to fill in specialist jobs, they will take a long time to be demoted. And same thing if you're moving specialists to fill in workers' jobs, they will still remain unemployed until they get demoted. So you either want to move them to a different colony that has those strata of jobs available, or construct additional buildings to make jobs in that higher strata become available. So one last thing to point out, you can actually set various living standards for your populations, in which this will cause unemployed pops to actually produce things for you. It's pretty expensive to do it, but essentially what you do is you go to the species in question and set their particular rights, and you go to living standards. So by default, most pops will live under decent conditions for your native species. This causes your unemployed pops to have reduced happiness, and it shows a breakdown of the additional upkeep requirements for the different strata, as well as any bonuses to happiness they might have. Now you can select the social welfare living standard, which requires more consumer goods in upkeep for your workers and your slaves, but there's higher happiness bonuses to all types of strata by doing this. And your unemployed pops will have a normal amount of happiness and produce unity for you. So if you want to keep unemployed pops and have them producing more unity at the cost of all of your pops requiring more consumer goods, you can set your living standards to social welfare. The other option is Utopian Abundance, and this one's actually pretty good too. This has it so that your rulers, your specialists, and your workers all have a plus 20% happiness bonus, but they all require the same amount of consumer goods in order to survive. However, your unemployed pops also have normal happiness, and they'll be producing some unity and research points to increase the output of science. So if you really wanted to, you could keep unemployment throughout your empire and simply set the living standards of your various populations to either Utopian Abundance or social welfare, and then those unemployed pops will actually be producing either some unity or some unity and science for your empire, and they won't just be sitting there doing nothing, consuming consumer goods and food, and not adding much else to your empire. So I do believe that covers everything. So remember the examples that I was showing here in this video. This was a regular organic empire which differs fairly greatly from a Gestalt consciousness. A Gestalt consciousness has only menial and complex drones, and the pops are interchangeable between those two strata. It's a different story for a regular organic empire. Somebody who was working in a research lab and was considered a person of science, they're not too happy, as I said, about going and working on the farms and getting sunburned all day. It will take them a while to be demoted and into the working class and fill in those available jobs. So do be aware of that. And like I said, you want to be checking up throughout your colonies every so often. If you find you're running low, for example, on minerals, well, a good place to go look would be your Forge World and see how many minerals your metallurgists are consuming, because they require a lot in order to produce those alloys. And it's a similar story for consumer goods. You want to go look at your researchers and even your culture workers, because both of them require an extra amount of consumer goods in order to produce more science and unity for your empire. So it's a fair bit to look after, and it's definitely more complicated than the old put this pop on this building on this tile method. But it can lead to some more interesting combinations of jobs to put your pops in. So that should sum it up for this video. So to recap, we've covered the resources involved in jobs, including production and upkeep, the various strata, unemployment, and favoritism for prioritizing and deprioritizing jobs. So I hope this video has been helpful for new and old players alike, learning these new mechanics that came with the version 2.2 update. If you'd enjoy seeing more videos such as this one, please subscribe to the channel, as there will be additional mechanics videos in the future. And don't forget, check out the links in the description below, such as my Twitch channel, where I stream Stellaris Console at least once a week and can interact with viewers live while playing. It's a good time to ask me questions too, as I can try to answer them as best as I can whilst you are watching. You'll also find my Twitter feed linked in the description below, which is a great way to keep in touch with me, and I'll post important announcements there. And lastly, my own personal Discord for fans of my channel to freely join. It's not mandatory, but I do encourage it, as you can interact with other viewers of my content. Thanks very much for watching. This is Mobius Y signing off for now, and I hope to see you again real soon.